Good morning, everybody. I want to talk to you about conflict, what it is and what does it look like, because I think we often think of conflict as that moment when people speak up, but there's often conflict a lot earlier than that. Sydney Noble, who is responsible for creating conflict coaching and helping people identify what is triggering the conflict and how to diffuse that, she defines conflict as being a feeling. I'm going to read it so that I make sure I get it right. But she refers to it as interpersonal situations that cause us upset and brew inside our hearts and our heads. And the other person usually doesn't know about it, and sometimes they do. So they may or may not know about it, and they may not be aware that this is an issue for us, because most conflict is experienced internally. So most of the time, conflict is actually silent. It's happening in here, and we feel upset and it's brewing. And we all know that feeling of upset brewing. A dispute is when things tip over, when a situation is escalated to the point where there is now word said, where somebody speaks up, where action is taken. And sometimes that might look like a formal complaint. It might look like somebody yelling at somebody else. It might look like somebody resigning. It might look like a work cover claim. That's when things have escalated to the point where it is now on the table, there is a dispute. But for the majority of the time, conflict is silent. And it's silent in that people are not talking to the people they need to talk to about it. Often they're talking to other people about it. They're talking to their work colleagues, they're talking to their family, they're talking to friends at barbecues, but they're not talking to the people who are part of the conflict and who can help them resolve the conflict. So that's what conflict is. Now what I want to look at is, what does it look like? And so because it's generally silent, it looks like a whole range of different things in a workplace. And often leaders and managers complain about their staff being disengaged. So it can look like people being disengaged. And often people who are disengaged are feeling upset, and it's brewing in their head and heart. They're feeling like they're not being valued, or they're not being respected, or their skills are not being utilised, or a whole range of different things. So it might look like people are disengaged. It might also look like people are disconnected. So if people are disconnected, they don't talk to each other, there are poor relationships, there might be silos at work, those type of things. So the group works as a team, they get the job done, but they're not actually connected in the way in which they do that. And I've seen that happen in lots of workplaces. Again, something's triggering them to feel upset, and so the relationships don't flow, and there's a problem. It can also look like low productivity. It can look like high turnover of staff. I hope you can read that. So low productivity, high turnover of staff. So people just basically go on strike. They don't put in their best effort. They just put in the bare minimum, or people just leave. So they're not prepared to speak out. They just leave because it's too hard to have that conversation. So it can look like all of these things. And what it can also look like is a long queue of people at your door wanting you to tell them what to do next. So there's no what to do. That would tell me that there's some issues with trust. They don't trust themselves, they're concerned that you don't trust them, so they're always double checking to make sure that they're doing the right thing. And also that probably also tells me that if they make a mistake, there's going to be trouble. So therefore, they're better off coming and double checking with you than making a mistake. So all in all, conflict looks like all of these things. And at the end of the day, as a leader, as a manager, the buck stops with you. We as leaders and managers have to take responsibility for all of this, because we can actually do something that would change these dynamics if we take some fairly significant action. And the number one thing that we can do is to get clarity. And we talk a lot about clarity in marketing, but clarity is bigger than marketing. Clarity is crucial to the way in which you run your business. So the number one thing that you can do is get clarity. And when I talk about clarity, I'm talking about being really clear about your vision and the reason why you're doing what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve, and then making sure that everybody's on the same page and you're going in the same direction and you're all rowing together in the same direction, because it's really hard work if you're not rowing in the same direction. You also need to have clarity about roles and responsibilities. Over and over again, I see organisations where those boundaries around roles and responsibilities are really murky and people don't quite know who's responsible for what and who's doing what. And as a result, people end up doing other people's work and they feel resentful, and then we have that brewing in the heart and mind about unfairness happening. You also need to have clarity around expectations. So what do you expect from your staff, from your team members? But equally, you need to have some expectation about what they expect from you. Communication breaks down when we're not clear about expectations and we're not clear about roles and responsibilities and visions and all of those things. So it is critical that you spend the time being really clear about the way in which your business runs. And finally, the last thing you have to be really clear about is how do you make decisions in your organisation. If you are not clear on that, then every decision looks a bit wishy-washy. But if you're really clear on the decision-making process, and the decision-making process is fair, then people will generally abide and accept the decisions that are made. But if it's not, then you're in trouble. The next thing that you need to look at is how do you manage your stress? Stress is one of the things that we can actually manage. We can do things that will dramatically reduce our stress levels. So personally, as a leader, how do you behave when you're stressed? You need to have some awareness about what you do when you're stressed and how does your team react to that. You need to have some understanding about what triggers your team into a stressful state and what happens when you get really stressed. And then you need to start thinking about what can you do to reduce stress levels in your team. And finally, these are the top three. There are other things that you can do, but these are the top three things that you could do right now to reduce some of the conflict in your workplace. The final one is to show appreciation. Everybody, and I mean everybody, wants to feel valued and respected and appreciated for the work that they do, for the skills that they bring to the work. It doesn't matter if they've been doing it for 1 week or 20 years. People want to feel valued. They want to feel appreciated. And we have that responsibility as leaders and as managers to make sure that our team feel appreciated. And you can do that in many ways. Often we say please and thank you, and it's off the cuff and we just do it. It's rote. It's an automatic response to a whole range of different things. What I'm talking about is actually taking the time out to stop and have a conversation with somebody to say thank you for the work that you do. Your contribution is a really big factor in our performance at work. All of those type of things, but spending some time, taking time out to actually thank people and being genuine in the way in which you do that. Finding people doing good work rather than looking for mistakes. So these are the top three. There are a number of other things that you can do, but I don't have time to go through them with you today. If this resonates with you, if you would like to find out more about the work that I do, please contact me, private message me, contact me. I'm more than happy to have a chat. You can also now go onto the Facebook page and book an appointment and we can have a strategy conversation. So let me know if I can be of any assistance to you, and focus on getting clarity, managing the stress, yours and the team's, and look for ways to show appreciation for your wonderful team, because you can't do it without them. Okay, have a good one. Cheers.